Good morning. As promised, here's today's spooky story for Halloween. And it's a true story, just like all of the ones I'm going to tell you this month. And as promised, the one today is about my grandson and when we first moved to this house and his encounter with Bill, the man who built this house. I should start out by telling you a little bit about this house. We knew very shortly after we bought the place that at least two people have died on this property. One of those was Bill, and he died right outside that picture window that I talked about yesterday while he was mowing the grass for his ex-wife. And this other one was a lady, an elderly lady who had cancer and who died on Christmas Day in the room behind me, which was at that point a living room. And it's now, what it now is a dining room and an office. But back then, it was a living room. And in that room was one big room, and there's a front door to the house in that area, and there was a big opening between that living room and the dining room, straight ahead off of that opening, and off to the right of that, looking from the front door, is the kitchen. So across that big opening, that big doorway, we used to have a dog gate. And the reason we had a dog gate was these guys right here. Because if we didn't gate that off, they would run the whole entire house and cause trouble we didn't want them causing. And they would get themselves into spaces we didn't want them in, like the laundry room where the cat box is. Some of you with little dogs probably understand exactly what I'm saying right there. So we had that gated off with a metal barred gate, like a baby gate, but with metal bars, so that you couldn't just pass through from the living room into the dining room without opening the gate and going through it. So this particular morning, my grandson was probably 6 going on 7, and he must have come down the stairs. Like I said yesterday, you can't hear from one end of the house to the other. And where their apartment is on one end of the house, and my bedroom is on the other end of the house. But at some point, I heard him in the old dining room area, which is, you can hear what's going on from there. You can hear, it's muffled, but you can tell that if someone is there. So I hear him shuffling around out there and talking to someone. He comes to my door a little bit after that, and he knocks on the door, and he says, "Grandma, can I come in?" And I said, "Sure, Char, come on in." And he comes in, and he says, "Grandma," in a very matter-of-fact voice, very calm, "Grandma, are you aware that there's a man in your house?" That made me sit bolt upright. And I said, "No, Char, what are you talking about? Tell me what you're talking about." And he said, "There's a man in your house in the dining room. And when I was standing there trying to figure out why he was there, he looked at me. And he said to me, 'This is my house. Get out. My house.'" And so I ran back here. And I said, "Well, Charlie, tell me a little bit more. What does this guy look like?" And he said, "He was tall and he was dressed in a suit, but he was mostly see-through." And at this point, I'm starting to figure out what he's seeing and calm down a little bit, because I know it's not somebody real in the house. And then he says to me, "And he walked right through the bars of the dog fence." And I knew for sure at that point what he was describing. So I said, "Charlie, you know you don't have to be afraid when you see stuff like that. What you should do is turn right back around and say, 'No, this is my house now. You get out. You get out.'" And when I said that, Charlie turned and he left, and he left my room and went back down toward the dining room. And I could hear him saying something. And he comes back a few minutes later, and I said, "Well, what happened when you did that?" And he said, "When I said, 'This is my house, you get out,' he said, 'No, it's my house, you get out.'" And I said, well, then what did you do? And he said, no, I said again, no, it's my house now. You get out. And I said, well, what happened then? And he said, he turned away from me and he walked right straight out through the wall in the dining room out into the backyard and disappeared. And at that point, I knew the house here was definitely haunted. Even though we'd had a few small things before that, I knew that the house was haunted. And since that time, while I have not seen Bill anytime aside from the other one that I talked about yesterday, I've not really seen him. Other people have seen him, and I'll tell a few of those stories in a day or two. But what really happens is I can smell his cigarette smoke. I'm walking through that area of the living room, the old living room, where Charlie saw him, and I can smell his cigarette smoke. And others have smelled it too, and heard, and we can, things are heard and occasionally seen by others in the house. So I hope you enjoyed today's story, and I hope you come back tomorrow, because tomorrow I am going to tell a story about my son when he was a child at our old house, and my grandson right before we moved from there, a few years before we moved from there, where they saw the same thing. If you like the stories, please hit like and hit the plus up there so that I get the ability to have more people see these stories. Have a great day. Thanks.